It's Liana, ELA for Financial Management. We had a request to go over this question here, which is week 3. So that's what I'm going to do here for you. So first, let's read through the question. So it's called Not the Photocopier Again. Your firm has a single copy machine and it has broken down yet again. You must decide how to proceed in replacing the copier. So far, you have received 2 competing offers for comparable machines. Both offers are for 3-year leases. Option A requires an upfront payment of $1,800 with an additional annual payment of $1,300 at the beginning of years 2 and 3. That's very important. The firm is also charged 1.5 cents for each sheet of printed paper payable at the end of each year. Again, end of each year is very important. Option B has no upfront costs. Its annual lease payment is $1,400 payable at the beginning of the year, and the per sheet charge is 1 cent payable at the end of the year. You estimate that monthly use of the copier will amount to 1,600 copies. So that's per month. That's important to note. Assuming that the appropriate discount rate is 9% per year, which lease deal offers the lowest cost in present value terms. So we have to calculate the present value. What I've got here is my workings. So what I've done in this blue box here, this is all the important information. So in this question here, there's so many words and it's a lot of the words are useless. So we've got to extract the most important pieces of information. So in the workings, I've done it for you here. So this is option A, all the details. This is option B, all the details. So we know our upfront costs, we know our annual lease payments, we know our cost per copy, and we know our discount rate here. So I won't go over this in detail again because I just spoke it. But what we can do is figure out our cost payable for the printing per year. So if we jump back into the question, it says that it's all our charges for printing is payable at the end of each year. That's the same for option A and option B. So what we can do quickly is we can do, let's go brackets, our cost per copy times by 1,600, and we have to times that by 12, which gives us our cost. So we go that, actually I'll put in brackets, that one times 1,600 times by 12. So there are all our costs. That's everything we need to know. Now, what we need to do is calculate the present value. This is very much like the present value calculations we do for valuation of firms. So I've popped here our present value formula. That is really important. And what I've done over here is created little boxes of how we work it out. Now, this is a cash flow because we've got different amounts coming in every single year. Now, this question here is a bit more complex with the cash flow because, as I mentioned in the question, there were some items that said payment at the beginning of the year and payment at the end of the year. That is super important, and I'll show you a timeline. So this is where I'd input here all the cash flows, and this is where we're going to calculate present value in a moment. Now, what I'll do now is jump into the timeline. How I set this out is very, very detailed. In exam environment, you may not do it as detailed as I have. Obviously, also you'll be using the financial calculator, which makes the steps a lot more easier. So it's good to understand that. But here I'm doing it really detailed to break it down so you understand my logic on how I derive the answers. So what I've done is created a timeline. So I've just wrote this out in my handbook and took a photo of it all for you so I can really show you. And I'll also provide you with this worksheet so you can sit down and really dive into it. So up here is the timeline. I always find this is super handy to actually draw it out. I've got year 0, year 1, year 2, and year 3. What I've also shown here is this period here is year 1. The start of year 1 is here and the end of year 1 is here. Super important to know because remember, payments are made at the start and then some are at the end. So this is option A here. So if we jump back, we've got an $1,800 payment, that's upfront, so that's year 0. And then our annual lease payments are paid at the beginning of each year. So if we jump back, we've got the two $1,300 payments, but you'll see that this is in year 1 because remember it says it's the start of year 2 and the start of year 3. So you can see that here, start of year 2, which is actually year 1. All right, and then we've jumped back into the workings. Our other cost is our cost payable for photocopying, and that is actually paid, if we jump back to the question, at the end of the year. So we jump back into here, my timeline, year 1, year 2, year 3, because it's a 3-year lease, it's paid at the end, and that's how I put it in the timeline. So if we add those up, here are our timeline, and here is our figures of our costs per year and when they are paid. So that's super important to understand in order to calculate the PV. So hopefully that one makes sense. If we jump into, let's just have a quick look at B, we've got no upfront payments. We're paying $1,400 at the beginning of each year. It's the 3-year lease. And then we've got $192, which is paid at the end of the year. So if we jump into here, jump down, we can see the $1,400 paid at year 0, year 1 and year 2, and then the $192 of photocopying costs is year 1, year 2, and year 3. Add it all together, here are our costs per year. So that's our cash flow. So we jump back into the workings. What I've done is I've actually already inputted that all for you. Here we go. And remember, I'm showing it in 4 decimal places because when we're mid-working, we calculate with 4 decimal places, and then in our answers, we show 2 decimal places. So there we go. That's fairly simple so far. It's really important to understand when payments are made. So beginning or end, super important. Usually if it doesn't state it, we can probably assume it's towards the end of the year. But the question will always indicate. So now we're going to calculate the present value. If we're doing this long form, so by hand, we have to calculate it for every single year. Obviously, if you have your financial calculator, it's a lot more simpler. You can just input all the values and it'll spit out your total. So year 1, we don't have to discount it at all because we're getting what we're getting. We've got to pay it day 1. So remember, we're trying to figure out which option is the cheaper option. So year 2, now we have to start doing the present value. So remember our formula, we've got our cash flow over 1 plus our rate to the power of the period. Because it's year 1, we don't really need to power it to anything because 1 won't change the answer. So I can just drop that down and there's the answer for B. So let's jump into year 2. The cash flow over 1 plus 0.09 to the power of, and we're going to do 2. And we can bring that one down here too. So let's go into year 3. $96 over 1 plus 0.09 to the power of 3. And we can bring that down. There's our calculations. You can see up here my formula. And then what we do is we have to total these all up. There we go. There's our 2 answers. Which one is the cheapest? Here we go. Option A. That's our answer. So this is not too complex once you actually break it down. From such a wordy question here, we don't actually need that much information. So it's super important, especially when your exams, you extract the important pieces of information, say goodbye to all the words and just work with that. I think it makes it a lot more easier. I hope that makes sense. Thank you.